What if the one thing you did to protect your marriage was the exact thing that destroyed it? What if the person you trusted with your deepest secret handed you the knife that cut your life in two? This is not a horror story. This is not a fairy tale. This is the story of two women, best friends, who both wanted the same thing: security, love, peace of mind. One went looking for it in the wrong place. The other paid the price. Stay with me, because by the time this story ends, you will never look at friendship, trust, or desperation the same way again.
Funke and Mimi had been friends since secondary school. Funke was 30 years old, loud, sharp, the kind of woman who walked into a room and immediately rearranged it to her liking. She had a big laugh, big opinions, and an even bigger heart. She was the friend who showed up at your door at midnight with food when you were crying. She was the friend who fought for you when you couldn't fight for yourself. But Funke had a weakness that she never showed in public. She was afraid. Deeply, quietly, terrifyingly afraid. Not of snakes, not of the dark. Funke was afraid of being left. Every man she had ever loved had walked away. Her father left when she was 7. Her first boyfriend left her for her cousin. Her second relationship ended after 3 years when the man simply stopped calling. No explanation, no goodbye, nothing. Just silence. So by the time Funke turned 28 and started dating Emeka, a quiet, hard-working man who owned a small electronics shop, she decided something inside herself. She decided she was not going to lose this one. Not like the others. Not again. Mimi was 26, quieter than Funke, more careful. She had been married to Bode for 2 years, a tall, handsome man who worked in Lagos and came home every weekend. Mimi was the kind of woman who ironed her husband's shirts before he asked, who kept the house so clean it looked like no one lived in it, who smiled even when she was tired. But Mimi also had a secret. She wore a small charm, a thin leather cord tied around her waist, under her clothes where no one could see it. Her grandmother had given it to her before the wedding and told her, "This will keep your home safe. This will keep your husband's eyes from wandering. Don't remove it. Don't let anyone touch it." Mimi believed it, not entirely, but enough. It had been 2 years and Bode was still faithful, still loving, still coming home every Friday with a small gift. Sometimes fruit, sometimes biscuits, sometimes just a smile. So Mimi wore the cord and said nothing, and thanked her grandmother in her heart. The two women spoke every day. They shared everything: recipes, gossip, money when times were hard, silence when words were too heavy. But they did not share these particular secrets. Not yet. Inside Lifeful. It started with a woman named Chisom. Chisom was new in the neighborhood. She was beautiful in the way that makes other women uncomfortable. The kind of beautiful that doesn't apologize for itself. She moved in 3 streets away from Emeka's house, and within 2 weeks, people were already talking. I saw Emeka's car parked near her building. She was laughing with him at the market. I heard she's been asking questions about him. Funke heard all of it. She told herself not to listen. She told herself she trusted Emeka. She told herself rumors are just rumors. But at night, when Emeka's phone buzzed and he turned the screen away from her, Funke's old fear woke up. It stretched its arms. It looked at her with familiar eyes. "You know how this ends," it said. "They always leave." She started checking his phone when he slept. She found nothing. She started driving past Chisong's building. She saw nothing. She started asking questions with a smile on her face and terror in her chest. Nothing, nothing, nothing. But the fear didn't care about nothing. The fear only understood not yet. One Tuesday evening, Funke sat in Mimi's kitchen and she was so exhausted from carrying it alone that she just broke open. "I'm losing my mind," she said. Mimi looked at her. "Talk to me." So Funke talked. She talked about Chisom, about Emeka, about every man who had ever left her, about the way fear had followed her since she was 7 years old, watching her father's back as he walked out the door. When she finished, Mimi was quiet for a long time. Then Mimi reached under her blouse and showed Funke the cord. She didn't mean to, she didn't plan to. It just came out. The way secrets do when two people trust each other too much. "My grandmother gave it to me," Mimi said quietly. "She said it keeps the home safe." Funke stared at it. "Does it work?" Mimi almost said, "I don't know." But instead she thought about 2 years of Bode coming home every Friday. "Bode has never looked at another woman," she said. "Not once." Funke was silent for a full minute. Then she said, "Where did your grandmother get it from?"
please you.
2 weeks later, Mimi came to Funke's house for the weekend. Bode was traveling for work, some training program in Abuja that had been extended by 3 days, and Mimi didn't like being alone in an empty house. It was a normal visit. They cooked together, they watched Nigerian movies and argued about the plot. They talked about everything and nothing. On Saturday afternoon, Funke went out to get groceries. She told Mimi she'd be back in an hour. Mimi was alone in the house. She was cleaning because that's what Mimi did when she was in someone's house. She cleaned, she organized, she straightened things. When she went into the bedroom to fold some clothes she found on the chair, she opened a wardrobe to hang something up, and the old shoe at the back, Funke's old brown shoe, fell. Mimi picked it up. The brown cloth inside shifted, fell partly open. Mimi saw something wrapped inside, and without thinking, the way you pick something up without thinking, she touched it. Just her fingers on the surface, less than 3 seconds. She put it back. She closed the wardrobe. She thought nothing of it. She didn't know. She could not have known. Bode came home from Abuja 4 days later. He was different. Not dramatically different. Not the kind of different you notice immediately. Just quieter, more distant. Like he had come home in body, but left something of himself behind. Mim told herself he was tired. The second week, he started sleeping with his back to her. She told herself it was the heat. The third week, she found a name saved in his phone, Amara, with text that started professionally and ended with things that professional messages do not say. Mim sat on the edge of their bed for 45 minutes, holding the phone and not moving. She called Funke. Funke came. And when Mim described what had happened, the messages, the distance, the way Bode looked through her now like she was glass, Funke went cold. Cold in her bones. If someone touches it who shouldn't, everything it was holding together comes apart. Mim, Funke said slowly, when you came to my house last month, did you go into my wardrobe? Mim frowned. I was cleaning. Did you touch anything inside? Mim looked at her. Funke, what is this about? Just tell me, did you touch anything? Mim remembered the shoe, the brown cloth, less than 3 seconds, and the color left her face. The two friends sat across from each other in silence, so thick it had weight. Funke had gone to a priest to protect her relationship. The side effect, the breaking, had followed Mim home. This was the part where the real horror begins. Not the supernatural kind, the human kind. Because Funke had to make a decision. Did she tell Mim the truth? Did she admit that she had gone to do something she now realized she barely understood, and that in doing so, she had dragged her best friend into consequences she never consented to? Mim was sitting there with her marriage breaking apart in her hands.
Funke told her everything. She didn't sugarcoat it. She didn't hide behind half-truths. She sat on the floor of Mimi's living room and she told her about the fear, about Chisom, about Papa Adeyemi, about the charm, about what the old man had warned her. When she finished, Mimi was crying, not loudly, just tears moving slowly down her face while her expression stayed perfectly still. You brought something into your home, Mimi said quietly, without understanding it, without knowing what it cost. I'm sorry, Funke said. And she meant it in a way she had never meant anything. And now my husband. Mimi's voice cracked. She stopped. She pressed her hand against her mouth. She breathed. My husband is texting another woman because I picked up a shoe. The silence was terrible. Then Mimi said something that changed Funke's life. She said, Funke, you were so afraid of losing someone that you handed the power to destroy you to a stranger. And you trusted a ritual more than you trusted yourself. She stood up. She wiped her face. I'm going to fight for my marriage, she said. Not with any charm, not with any cord. I'm going to call Bode tonight and I'm going to have the conversation I've been afraid to have for months. Because I've been hiding too. I hid my charm from him. I protected myself with a secret instead of with honesty. And maybe that was already a crack in the wall. She looked at Funke. Go back to that priest. Undo whatever you did. Not for Emeka, for yourself. So you can learn to stand in a relationship without needing to cage it. Funke went home that night and sat alone in her apartment for a long time. She looked at the wardrobe. She thought about this 7-year-old girl watching her father walk away. She thought about all the years she had spent building walls and calling them protection. She picked up her phone. Not to call Papa Adiemi, she called Emeka. "I need to tell you something," she said, "about how afraid I am, about what I almost became, about who I want to be instead."
Meme had the hard conversation with Bodi. It took 3 weeks. There were nights where she didn't know if it would survive. But they went to counseling. They rebuilt, slowly, imperfectly, together. Funke ended things with the ritual. She also ended the habit of fear. Not overnight, but she started. She got therapy. She stayed with Emeka, honestly, vulnerably, without a safety net. And Emeka, who had never actually been with Chisom, who had just been polite to a neighbor, while Funke had been building a case against him in her head, Emeka loved her through it. All of it. The charm didn't protect Funke. The truth did. Inside Lifeo. If this story reached something inside you, it's because it was never really about rituals. It was about fear. About how far we go when we feel out of control. About how we sometimes hurt the people closest to us in our desperation to keep the people we love. The lesson is not don't be afraid. Fear is human. The lesson is don't let fear make your decisions. Because fear doesn't want to protect your love. It wants to own it. And anything you have to cage is not truly yours. If you've ever done something out of desperation that you're not proud of, you are not alone. What matters is what you choose next. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. And if it stayed with you, you already know why. The end. Like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment. Have you ever let fear make a decision you regret? See you now next